Welcome to HardScript.
Help me reach 5,000 subscribers. Support the video with a like and leave your thoughts in the comments. There's a moment in every man's life when he realizes he's no longer seen. Not as a partner, not as a person. Just background noise. For me, that moment came on a Thursday night in our own kitchen. I had left work early, something I rarely did. Stopped by Costco to grab her favorite wine. Made sure to pick up the exact brand of dark chocolate she liked. The kind she always pretended to resist, but finished in one sitting. I even cooked. Real food. Not just throwing frozen stuff into the oven like I used to when we first moved in. I was trying. Really trying. She walked in 40 minutes late. No explanation. No apology. Her heels clicked against the tile like she didn't even register the smell of food or the candles burning on the table. Bath and Body Works. Vanilla something. She always liked those. She didn't stop walking. Just grabbed a can of sparkling water from the fridge, sat down on the couch, and unlocked her phone like I didn't exist. I stood there, behind her, waiting for something, anything. Finally, I asked, "You hungry?" She didn't look up. Just said, "I don't have time for this." Not "I'm tired." Not "maybe later." Just that. "I don't have time for you," she added, still scrolling. No eye contact. No softness. No hesitation. Like it was a line she'd practiced. I didn't respond. Not with words. Something in me just powered down. Because you can't beg someone to look at you when they've already decided you're not worth seeing. I quietly sat across the table, watching her thumb flick through some feed, Instagram maybe, or one of her group chats. Her face lit up for strangers on a screen, but for me, nothing. That was the moment I stopped trying to fix it. Not because I was angry, but because I finally saw the truth. She hadn't just checked out emotionally. She had replaced the intimacy we built with distractions that didn't demand anything back. No effort. No vulnerability. Just noise. And I'd been trying to compete with it. But that night, I stopped playing. Because when someone can't even look up for you, not even once, you stop waiting for them to notice when you're gone. And that's when the silence begins. Not the one between two people. The one that builds inside you. Where the decision's already made. Even if you haven't walked out the door yet. The next few days passed like background music in a waiting room. You hear it, but you never really listen. She moved through the apartment like a tenant, not a partner. Phone in hand. AirPods in her ears. Always replying to someone else, reacting to someone else, laughing at someone else's story. Never mind. At first, I told myself she was just tired. Work had been hectic for both of us. Maybe she needed space. Maybe I was overthinking. But there was a moment that made it clear. We were at Applebee's for dinner with some mutual friends. Simple night out, nothing big. But it had been a while since we did anything social together, so I thought, maybe this would help. She sat next to me, but she wasn't there. She was checking her phone under the table. Her eyes kept darting to it like she was waiting for something urgent. She laughed twice. Not at the table's conversation, but at something on her screen. She didn't explain. Didn't try to loop me in. Just smiled at a world I didn't belong to anymore. And then I heard one of our friends ask her how things were between us. She looked up, blinked like she hadn't even thought about it lately, and said, "We're fine. Just busy." Busy. That word again. Busy was the new version of not now. Busy was how she dismissed me without saying the quiet part out loud. I'm not interested. That night, as we got home, she peeled off her jacket, kicked off her shoes, and curled up with her laptop. Netflix humming in the background. I stood there, watching her shoulders sink into the couch cushions like I didn't exist 3 feet away. She didn't say goodnight. Didn't ask about my day. She just disconnected. And I realized, for the first time, that her distance wasn't temporary. It was designed. Calculated. Because when someone no longer asks where you've been, it's because they've stopped caring if you come back. That night, I didn't sleep much. Not because I was angry, but because I was awake in a different way. I stopped searching for her attention. Started observing instead. Every silence. Every glance at her phone. Every half-hearted, "yeah," when I tried to talk. It all added up to one truth. I wasn't part of her life anymore. I was just furniture in her routine. And you don't argue with furniture. You just move it out when the space needs changing. It's strange what your eyes pick up when your heart stops trying. The more I pulled back, the more I noticed. Her rhythms, her choices, her attention, all recalibrated around someone else. I didn't go looking for anything. But when someone no longer hides what used to be private, it's not an accident. It's a message. One night, she left her phone face up on the kitchen counter, something she used to never do. I walked in from the patio and caught it lighting up with a message preview. Miss our talks tonight already. And then the name. Zach. I felt something tighten in my chest, not jealousy. Recognition. Zach was someone she had mentioned months ago. A guy from her job, new in her department. Smart, but awkward. That's how she described him when I asked. Back then, I didn't flinch. I wasn't the insecure type. We'd been together long enough to have built trust. Or so I thought. The thing about erosion is you don't see it until the cliff breaks off. Later that night, while she was in the shower, I noticed she left her laptop open on the couch. Email tab still running. I didn't snoop. I didn't touch a thing. But there, in plain sight, was a thread, subject line, Friday night. I didn't read it. I didn't need to. The timestamps told the story. While I had been in bed alone, she was online, deep in conversation with someone who wasn't me. That's when the shift happened, quietly. No confrontation. No raised voice. Just calculation. Because I realized I had been replaced in the most efficient way possible. Not with scandal, not with betrayal in the traditional sense, but with availability. She gave him what she once gave me. Attention, time, curiosity. And me? She gave me silence. So I started preparing. Not revenge. Not some grand emotional gesture. Just distance. I started spending more time at the gym, waking up earlier, getting home later. I stopped initiating conversations. I didn't comment on her schedule, didn't ask who she was texting, didn't show any emotion when she walked in laughing into her phone. She noticed. Of course she did. But she said nothing. Because the scariest thing you can give someone who's used to being chased is stillness. I didn't argue. I didn't accuse. I just started disappearing in slow motion. And in that silence, her confidence began to shift. Because the moment she realized I wasn't checking anymore was the moment she started wondering why. The real power isn't in yelling. It's in not reacting at all. I came home late that Thursday. Gym bag slung over my shoulder, protein shake half finished in my hand. She was on the couch, scrolling, of course. Background noise from a show she wasn't really watching. Same gray hoodie, same blank stare. She looked up when I walked in. For a split second, she seemed almost expectant, like she was waiting for a comment, maybe even a complaint. But I said nothing. Just walked past her, dropped my bag in the hallway, and went straight to the shower. I didn't ask how her day was. Didn't offer mine. I didn't mention the text from Zach I saw 2 nights ago, or the Friday night email I never opened. When I came out, she was still there, but her posture had shifted. She looked less confident. Legs crossed tighter, phone held a little closer. Something in her eyes was scanning me. Like she couldn't figure out what was different, but she felt it. I sat at the kitchen island, opened my laptop, and got to work. Emails. Project drafts. I wasn't busy, but I was visibly unavailable. And for someone like her, that was foreign. Because until then, I was always available. Emotionally, mentally, physically. My time was hers, no questions asked. Now, I was just quiet. She made an attempt, a small one. Asked what I was working on. I answered with a short, neutral sentence. Didn't ask anything back. She didn't try again. And that was the moment it hit her. Not through words, but through absence. She stood up 20 minutes later, lingered by the fridge, pretended to grab something, then wandered back into the room. No comment. No good night. She just looked at me, for a second longer than usual, then walked into the bedroom alone. But I didn't follow her. I waited. And when I finally walked in, she wasn't sleeping. She was lying on her side, facing the wall, phone pressed to her chest like a shield. I didn't say anything. Didn't touch her. Just got into bed, back turned, and exhaled. She shifted, like she wanted to say something. But she didn't. That silence. It was mine. And for the first time in months, it was louder than her excuses. Because sometimes the cruelest truth isn't in what you find out. It's in how someone reacts when you already know, and they realize too late that you've stopped asking. The next morning, I woke up before she did. She was still curled up on her side of the bed, arms wrapped around her phone like it was a lifeline. I didn't touch her, didn't say a word, just slid out of bed, grabbed my laptop, and brewed my coffee in silence. Black. No sugar. I sat at the kitchen table, and for the first time in weeks, opened the folders I had been ignoring, tax documents, banking apps, shared passwords, the logistics of life that couples treat like background noise. That day, I moved all my primary accounts off our shared email. updated the passcodes on my subscriptions, removed her from the Hulu family plan, logged out of Spotify, the one I paid for, and she built half the playlists on. I cleared the watch history, scrubbed the browsing memory. It wasn't petty. It was preparation. Because when someone tells you, directly or not, that they're too busy for you, that they don't have time, don't have space, don't want to be touched, it's not just a comment. It's a blueprint. I remembered a phrase someone once told me. People don't fall out of love. They just stop including you in their plans. That morning, I stopped including her in mine. I didn't block her, didn't erase her like a bad memory. I just started closing tabs, one by one. Quietly, deliberately. I removed our photo from my lock screen, took down the framed snapshot from our trip to Denver, put it in a drawer, not out of spite, just because it no longer belonged in the open. When she finally woke up, came into the kitchen, and saw me working, again, she paused, like she was testing the air. I didn't look up. She made herself tea, not coffee. She'd quit caffeine a month ago because Zach said it messed with focus. I noticed. She didn't talk much, hovered around, waited for me to initiate. I didn't. And that stillness? It unsettled her more than any argument would have. By noon, she left, said she had errands. No details, no invitation. The moment the door closed, I went into the bedroom, grabbed the old storage bin under the bed, and started clearing space. Not packing, just realigning, making space for myself where there used to be us. That was the difference now. Before, I was hoping she'd come back to me. Now, I was building a life where she wouldn't fit. It was a random Tuesday when it happened. I stopped at Home Depot after work to grab a replacement for the broken light fixture in the hallway. That's when I ran into Mitch, an old co-worker of hers. We'd met a few times. Nothing deep, just polite nods at company barbecues. But this time, Mitch recognized me instantly. He gave me that look, the one people give when they're not sure how much you know. I didn't ask for anything, didn't hint, just said, "Hey," and kept moving. But Mitch didn't let it go. He said something vague at first. Something like, "You handling things all right?" I didn't respond, just kept my eyes on the aisle markers. Then he said it. Man, I didn't think she'd be that bold. Not at the office. It wasn't the words that hit me. It was the confirmation. Because I wasn't paranoid. I wasn't crazy. My gut had been right all along. She wasn't just cold, distracted, or working on herself. She was busy with someone else. I didn't show it. No questions. No reaction. Just a slight nod and a tight, unreadable smile. Mitch realized he'd said too much. He mumbled something about grabbing lumber and disappeared down an aisle. I stood there for a moment. In the lighting section, hands on the cart, my reflection in the metal of a hanging pendant lamp staring back at me. And still, I didn't text her, didn't confront her, didn't throw accusations. I drove home in silence, windows down, music off. When I got back, she was already there, sitting on the couch, laptop open, pretending to read emails. She looked up, smiled, the fake kind, the practiced kind. I said nothing, walked into the bedroom, and closed the door behind me. That night, I started my own kind of restructuring. I pulled out a notebook, the old leather one I hadn't used in years, and began listing the things I'd let slide. Joint bills, shared subscriptions, her name on my emergency contacts. All of it. It wasn't about revenge. It was about extraction. Extraction of my presence from her life. Not loud, not violent, just surgical. The kind of exit you don't see coming until you realize the room is empty. And in the stillness of that room, you finally hear the silence you created. After that night, something in me shifted. I stopped reacting, stopped asking where she was going or when she'd be home. I stopped checking if she'd eaten or if she'd slept. I just stopped showing up in ways she'd come to rely on, not out of love, but convenience. She didn't notice it at first. She kept moving like nothing had changed. Still walked past me in the mornings without a glance. Still laughed at texts she wouldn't let me see. Still kept that phone glued to her hand like it held her real life, the one I was never invited into. But slowly, the quiet started pressing in. One night, she came home late from yoga, hair done, makeup too clean for a workout. I was sitting at the kitchen table, scrolling Zillow. Not for fun, for real. She glanced over and asked casually what I was looking at. I didn't look up. That silence. It was louder than anything I could have said. And I watched her face twist, just slightly, as if she felt something slip and couldn't name it. Another night, She left her phone on the coffee table and went to the bathroom. It buzzed once. I didn't move, didn't touch it, didn't care. She came out and looked at me, expecting something. A reaction, a question. There was none. Instead, I got up, walked past her, and left the room. Not in anger, just done. I started keeping my jacket by the front door, my keys on the table, my work bag packed every night. I'd make coffee in the mornings, 1 cup, not 2. I did my own laundry, my own groceries, started hitting the gym again, switched from watching Netflix with her to running laps at the park alone with my AirPods in. She watched this happen like a bystander at a slow car crash, confused, unsure when exactly she lost control, because I never shouted, never accused, never broke anything. I just started disappearing. Emotionally, physically, systematically. And now the silence she'd been so comfortable sitting in, it wasn't hers anymore. It was mine, and I let her sit in it. Uninvited, unnoticed. Because sometimes the loudest thing you can do isn't yell or slam a door. Sometimes it's taking your presence, the one she thought she could ignore, and turning it into absence. One that echoes. It was a Sunday morning when she finally noticed how cold the apartment had become. Not in temperature, in presence. I was already dressed, shirt tucked, keys in hand. I'd been waking up earlier, taking long walks before the city came alive. That morning, she stood in the hallway, wearing my old hoodie like it still meant something. She asked if I wanted breakfast. I looked at her, really looked, for the first time in weeks. And I could see it in her eyes. The panic. It was subtle, like someone realizing too late they'd left the stove on. She smiled, but it wasn't confidence anymore. It was nervous. It was unfamiliar. I nodded once, polite, and said I'd already eaten. She stood there, watching me lace my boots, waiting for something, a question, a joke, a sigh. But I gave her nothing. Because at that point, she didn't deserve the version of me who begged for her time. She didn't get the man who waited for her at dinner while she scrolled Instagram. She didn't get the one who forgave excuses wrapped in pretty lies. She got the quiet version. The clean-cut, emotionally unplugged version who no longer asked, "What's wrong?" Or "Are we okay?" I walked past her toward the door. She stepped into my path. She asked, "Are we going to talk about this?" I didn't even stop. I just said, "About what?" She hesitated, like she didn't know what to say now that she couldn't throw the first punch. No more passive jabs. No more delayed responses. No more pretending she was too busy. She asked if I was mad. I told her I'd moved past mad weeks ago. I left without another word. That afternoon, I spent 4 hours at a coffee shop downtown, going over documents with a quiet, focused energy I hadn't felt in years. New job offer. Relocation package. I hadn't signed anything yet, but I knew I would. She texted me twice. "Where are you? Are you coming back tonight?" I stared at the screen, then turned it face down. Let her feel it. Not rage. Not revenge. Absence. The same absence she gave me every time she said, "I don't have time for you," without looking up from her phone. Now the silence belonged to her. And this time, I wasn't coming back to fix it. The silence I gave her wasn't temporary. It was structural. I stopped reacting. Stopped waiting. Stopped being the fallback plan she didn't have to earn. And the thing about emotional withdrawal is, it doesn't make noise. It doesn't slam doors. It just stops showing up. That week, I moved my savings into a new private account, changed my emergency contacts, even started forwarding my mail to a temporary P.O. box I rented near the new job's HQ. A friend helped me find a quiet, unfurnished rental near the city. No lease signed yet, but keys were already in hand. Back home, she was unraveling. I wasn't there to catch the first thread, but I saw the effects. She called her sister 3 times in a row one night. No answer. She messaged her best friend, the one who always backed her no matter what, and got left on read. I only knew because her phone lit up in the kitchen while she paced the hallway in frustration. That phone, the one she used to hide behind, was now useless. No new texts. No late-night calls. Whatever fantasy she'd been chasing had dried up. Or maybe it was never real to begin with. And now, in the absence of distraction, she finally saw what she'd done. She made me invisible until I actually became it. She picked the fights, broke the routines, ignored the signals, then acted surprised when the man she'd tuned out stopped tuning back in. At work, I got the final call. I'd passed the last interview round. Position secured. Start date in 2 weeks. I didn't tell her. That night, I watched her sitting on the couch in silence. No music, no TV, no phone in hand. Just staring at the wall like it held answers. She looked small, not in the way that sparks pity, in the way that comes from being left alone with your consequences. She tried to talk to me once more, something soft, like, "Hey, can we reset?" But it was too late for resets. Because what she didn't realize was, I didn't leave when she stopped having time for me. I left when I stopped needing time with her. And the person she was trying to reach, he wasn't here anymore. He had already built a new silence, one she couldn't break through. The morning I left, it was quiet. No storm, no slammed doors, no suitcase dragged across the floor. Just the clean silence of a man who'd already been gone for weeks. She was asleep when I stood in the doorway one last time. I didn't take much, a few clothes, documents, the laptop I needed for the new job. The rest didn't matter. I didn't want souvenirs from a place that buried who I used to be. My Ford F-150 was already packed and waiting in the driveway. I'd changed the title to a new address. No trace, no breadcrumbs. As I turned to go, she stirred, half awake, disoriented. She sat up slowly and asked, "Where are you going?" I didn't answer. She blinked at me like she was seeing a stranger. Maybe she was. The man who used to pause everything just to hear her speak. He wasn't standing there anymore. I watched her reach for her phone, then stop. There was no one to call. The circle had closed. And not around her. I stepped outside without another word. By the time she got out of bed and walked to the door, the truck was gone. No note. No closure. Just space. I moved into the rental that day. Unfurnished, but peaceful. The kind of space where air moved freely and no one needed permission to breathe. I ordered new sheets from Amazon. Picked up groceries from Costco. Burned time in the quiet. Not because I was hiding, but because I was healing. No social media announcement. No revenge post. Just the absence of me from her world. A week later, I got a message from her. "Can we talk?" I read it, then deleted it. No anger. No thrill. Just clarity. She used to say she didn't have time for me. And I listened. But now, I had something she didn't, peace. And when people ask what happened, I don't explain. Because some exits don't need a story. They just need a decision. She thought I'd fight to stay. But I learned that silence isn't weakness. Sometimes, it's the final boundary. So when she looked around and didn't see me, she wasn't abandoned. She was answered. And the answer was simple. I'm not busy. I'm just not available. To people who weren't available to me. Drop it in the comments. Hit subscribe. This is where we talk about what doesn't get forgiven.